And all of this, every calculated step, was orchestrated by me. I dialed his number with a calm, almost leisurely air, knowing full well he was squirming on the other end, struggling to mask his discomfort. "Honey, I'm in a meeting," Edwin muttered, his voice tight with suppressed pain. I responded with a soft, deliberate warmth, "Since you two are so deeply in love, why not make it eternal, never to part?" The first whisper of suspicion about Edwin's betrayal crept into my mind during a business trip to Seoul. It was a photo he'd posted on social media that caught my eye, a seemingly innocent snapshot from his long-awaited vacation to the Maldives, where he'd gone to unwind during his annual leave. The caption read, "Clear skies, gentle breezes, and the Maldives sea today is an exquisite blue." The photo showed him posing with a group of colleagues and friends, all smiles under the tropical sun. At first glance, it was unremarkable, just another carefree holiday moment. But my sharp instincts zeroed in on a detail that didn't sit right. Edwin had been wearing the swim trunks I'd gifted him when he left, navy blue, with a subtle wave pattern I'd picked out myself. Yet in the group photo, those trunks were nowhere to be seen. Instead, he sported a bright new pair, garish and unfamiliar. Intrigued, I scrolled back through his posts. 5 days earlier, in a candid shot of a beachside dinner, I spotted it, half of a woman's figure intruding into the frame, her plump backside spilling over a chair. She wore the exact same swim trunks I'd given Edwin, only they were pinned at the waist with a paperclip, straining against her curves. Was this some coy little signal between them? A flirtatious game hidden in plain sight? When he returned home, I decided to test him, casually bringing up the swim trunks over dinner. To his credit, he didn't stumble or stammer. With the practiced ease of a stand-up comedian, he launched into an animated tale. "Sweetheart, you won't believe this, I'm still mortified. Those trunks you gave me? I was swimming in the ocean, and the elastic wasn't tied tight enough. A wave yanked them right off. I nearly flashed the entire beach, talk about embarrassing. Had to run ashore and buy a new pair on the spot." He slapped his thigh for emphasis, chuckling as he often did to make me laugh. In the past, I'd have melted at his boyish charm. But now, I watched his performance with icy detachment, noting every exaggerated gesture, every rehearsed inflection. It was our 5th wedding anniversary that day, a milestone he'd conveniently forgotten. I played along, refusing to reward his act with a smile. Sensing my mood, he fell silent, then slid an arm around my shoulders. "Darling, I'll take better care of the things you give me from now on, okay? Don't be mad." He puckered his lips and made a silly face, a trick that once won me over during our courtship. But now, staring at Edwin's greasy, smug features, a wave of regret washed over me. Back when he pursued me, he'd been the least handsome of my suitors, his plain face offset by a gentle temperament and a career that matched mine in ambition. I'd thought an unassuming man would be loyal, content to build a quiet life. How naive I'd been. A man's baser instincts, it seemed, cared little for looks. That afternoon, the office called me in for a late shift. My car was at the dealership for maintenance, so I took Edwin's, a sleek Mercedes SUV we'd bought when we started planning for a baby, prioritizing comfort for our future family. As I settled into the driver's seat, my intuition flared. The passenger seat was off, tilted back at least 15 degrees from its usual position. Someone had been here, in our private space. My senses sharpened. The air carried a faint, musky tang, a lingering trace of something illicit. My eyes swept the interior, landing on the armrest of the passenger seat. There, wedged in the crevice, was a scrap of black fabric. I tugged it free, a lace-trimmed thong, its provocative design practically screaming seduction. I let out a bitter laugh. Well played. I pocketed the evidence without a word, biding my time. Days later, in the same spot, I found another item, a bikini top, its fabric still faintly scented with a light, summery perfume. I recognized it instantly, a new L brand fragrance I'd sampled at the mall. Clutching it, I set out to follow the trail. I met with suspects, Edwin's female coworkers, old classmates, until I zeroed in on one person, our goddaughter, Maisie. Maisie greeted me with her usual warmth, looping her arm through mine. Godmother. Did you miss me? I've been job hunting lately, let's grab dinner soon. Once a scrawny high school girl with a spark of determination in her eyes, she'd blossomed into a tall, curvaceous young woman. Rumor had it she'd undergone breast augmentation earlier that year for the sake of beauty. The bikini I'd found? It looked like it'd fit her perfectly now. Maisie was the Pearl student Edwin and I had sponsored through 4 years of university, a prodigy from a poor family, brimming with potential. I'd seen her as a bright, virtuous girl with a future far grander than ours. Yet here she was, reeking of that telltale perfume, her innocence a facade. Had her hunger for a shortcut, to leap from sparrow to phoenix, clouded all that brilliance? I teased her with a smile, you've gotten even prettier since I last saw you, Maisie. Those supplements must be working wonders, your figure's stunning now, all grown up. She blushed, playfully nudging me. Oh, godmother, you're the worst. But a sly glint flickered in her eyes as she added, yep, the papaya pills did the trick. Look at me, celebrity curves. I nodded silently. Her body was the kind men drooled over online, a manufactured ingenue, pure yet provocative. My own physique, honed through years of Pilates, felt austere by comparison. Let's have dinner sometime, I said. Absolutely, she chirped, gushing about my fashion sense, my eye for bags and outfits. That's when I noticed the dazzling Harry Winston gemstone ring on her finger, the designer clothes draping her frame. She was doing well for herself, too well for a recent graduate without a job. Godmother, you're aging like fine wine, she cooed. Godfather must adore you, this is what they call a mature woman's allure. Her flattery was polished, a skill honed by her business degree. Back home, I stripped the car of its tainted accessories, mats, cushions, all of it, and replaced them with new ones. By chance, Edwin returned from his own late shift just then. Seeing me preparing a midnight snack, he wrapped me in a hug. You're the best wife, darling. Thanks for this. His suit was pristine, his breath laced with gum and cologne, an obvious cover-up. I itched to snap, back already? Washed off the stench yet? But years as a corporate professional had taught me restraint. Instead, I smiled. No problem, dear. I picked up your files from the front desk, they're on your computer table. Thanks, my love, he grinned, oblivious. That night, he tried to initiate intimacy, but I could tell his heart wasn't in it. Sated elsewhere, he was merely going through the motions. I brushed him off. I'm tired. Let's skip it, I'll scroll my phone and sleep. He sidled closer, patting his shoulder with a roguish grin. Need a pillow? I turned away, lips moving silently, I'd rather not rest my head where another woman's legs have been. Oh, by the way, I added casually, I ran into Maisie today. She wants to have lunch with us the day after tomorrow. She's really grown into herself, I mused aloud. Quite the beauty now. Edwin paused, then replied smoothly, yeah, it's been a while since I last saw her. I closed my eyes. Let's see how long you can keep up this charade. The next day, Edwin and I took time off work to meet Maisie at a hot pot restaurant for a reunion. She arrived in a plunging black dress, her figure a study in contrasts, ivory skin against inky fabric, radiant yet sultry. As we ordered, Edwin offhandedly told the waiter, make it a split pot, white broth, with dates and longan. She can't handle spice right now. My expression shifted, and Maisie quickly laughed it off. Godmother, don't get the wrong idea, I just told Godfather I'm on my period. Her necklace dipped into her cleavage as she spoke, a vision of ripe allure. She knew exactly how to wield her charm. Edwin chimed in, right, honey, you've got a sensitive stomach too. Let's keep it mild. Love, or its absence, reveals itself in the smallest gestures. That night, I feigned drunkenness, secretly spilling my drinks into the trash. When Edwin couldn't drag me home, he draped his coat over me and booked a hotel room upstairs. I lay awake beneath that coat, its faint perfume mocking me with every breath. The next morning, I claimed items were stolen from the car and called the building manager to check the garage footage. Sure enough, it showed Edwin and Maisie driving off together at dawn. The car wasn't enough, they dared to invade our home. I hired a private investigator, dipping into my personal savings, funds Edwin knew nothing about, amassed through years of savvy investments. I'd planned to buy a downtown condo for our future child's schooling. Now, that dream felt laughably distant. The PI returned swiftly with dirt. Maisie's notorious at K University, a social butterfly who dines with all sorts of men. Classmates say she was expelled junior year for misconduct, even tried seducing the vice principal and failed. Her grades were abysmal, barely clinging to enrollment. My heart sank. I'd first met Maisie as a malnourished girl with fierce eyes, vowing that education would change her fate. She'd twirled in the dress I bought her, calling me godmother with such sweetness. Yet after tasting the world at an Ivy League school, she'd traded books for sugar daddies. Now a top-on model with entertainment aspirations, she'd sculpted herself, surgery and all, to climb higher. Through Edwin, no doubt, she aimed to break into the industry, only to discard him for a bigger fish later. The PI handed me Edwin's financials next. Of his modest earnings, nearly $15,000 had flowed to Maisie in mere months, lavish gifts, designer trinkets. Furious, I requested a car bug. The PI warned it was illegal, inadmissible in court. I don't care, I said. It's not for evidence, just to hear how vile they really are. He relented, and we sealed the deal. Days later, I left town on a business trip. Predictably, the bug picked up chatter from the SUV. Godfather. I want a hug, Maisie purred, her voice dripping with honeyed provocation. Sweetheart, did you miss me today? Edwin's laugh was smug, a far cry from his usual reserved demeanor. So much. You're so naughty. The seats creaked rhythmically. I smirked, fists clenched, and called him mid-act. After dodging me, he picked up, breathless. Hey, honey, where are you? Darling, I'm in a meeting. His tone was forced, punctuated by a zipper's faint rasp and stifled gasps. I hung up sweetly. All right, dear, take your time. Then I raced to the garage, recorder in hand, snapping photos as they groped each other shamelessly. Just as I lunged forward, a firm hand yanked me back, a tall, striking young man pinning me against the wall with a searing kiss to silence me. Struggling free, I glared at him. He pressed a finger to my lips. Rushing in like that won't satisfy you, sister. He was right. They'd outnumber me, maybe even turn violent. I steadied myself, recognizing him, Julian, Maisie's senior at university. I'd met him when I dropped her off freshman year. She'd flirted, but he'd brushed her off. A star student, leagues above her. What do you want? Blackmail money? I snapped. He shook his head, eyes bloodshot, breath ragged. No. I need you. Friends had dragged him to a bar, where a wealthy woman spiked his drink. Now desperate, he grabbed my hand, pressing it to his racing chest. His clean, crisp scent, unlike Edwin's stale tobacco, stirred something in me. I'll help you, I said, if you do me a favor. He agreed instantly, kisses raining down until I stopped him. I drove him to the hospital in my BMW Mini, letting doctors treat his drug-induced symptoms. Sister, this is your help, he groaned. I tousled his hair. Boys need to stay sharp, don't drink what strangers offer. We exchanged contacts. When Edwin called, I ignored him, dialing Maisie instead. Sobbing, I confided, Maisie, Edwin might be cheating. I found lingerie in the car. She feigned shock, stifling a giggle. I baited her. It's that new co-worker of his, I've seen her flirt. Her glee was palpable. What's your plan, godmother? I'll catch her red-handed. I staged a showdown with the co-worker, an act we'd rehearsed, tearing at her hair before realizing my mistake and paying her off. Maisie gloated to Edwin over the bug. Your wife's clueless, she even teamed up with me to bust your mistress. Their laughter echoed. I nodded to myself. Enjoy it while it lasts. The real reckoning was yet to come. After my failed attempt to catch them in the act, I laid bare my boundless guilt to Edwin, expecting some shred of remorse. Instead, he accepted it with shameless audacity, his voice low and sullen. Darling, do you have any idea how much this stunt of yours could hurt my career? Let's not do anything foolish like this again. How could I ever betray you? I nodded meekly, my tone dripping with feigned tenderness as I apologized. Then, as if struck by a sudden revelation, I clapped my hand to my forehead. Oh, honey, didn't we forget to celebrate our wedding anniversary last month? His brow furrowed, he clearly hadn't remembered either. You're right. Work's been so hectic lately, I completely lost track of our 5th anniversary. I dipped my head, stifling a cold laugh that threatened to break my facade. Our anniversary? The day you were tangled up with your little goddaughter in the car, playing your filthy games? And here he was, posing as some innocent, devoted husband. As I slid my arms around him, I leaned in close, brushing a soft breath against his ear, his weak spot, one I'd mastered long ago. Honey, I booked us a lavish suite at the Hilton. How about we spend tonight, just the two of us, in our own little world? His face tightened at the mention of the cost. Edwin was notoriously frugal, stingy even with his mistress, always hunting for discounts. I knew he'd balk. At the expense. Smirking coyly, I slipped the room key into his jacket pocket, purring, "We're still trying for a baby, aren't we? I'll be waiting." The suite was a decadent affair, an electric waterbed room for lovers, costing thousands for a single night. I'd prepared it meticulously, planting a bottle of lubricant laced with fast-drying superglue. For authenticity, I'd drizzled a few drops of matching scented oil into the mix. That evening, I claimed a last-minute work emergency, saying I'd be pulling an all-nighter at the office dorm. Go enjoy it yourself, honey, I cooed over the phone. It'd be a shame to waste all that money, it's non-refundable. Be good. My voice was a velvet poison, luring him into complacency. After confirming I'd be stuck at work, he relented with a grudging nod. All right, darling. Don't stay up too late, get some rest. Predictably, he'd seized the chance to summon his paramour for a tryst. A rare opportunity like this? He wouldn't resist. That night, I sat in a chic restaurant across from the hotel, savoring a late supper. The floor-to-ceiling windows framed my silhouette, wineglass in hand, as red and blue ambulance lights flickered outside. It seemed they'd found my little gift quite memorable. Soon enough, a stretcher emerged from the hotel, bearing a writhing pair fused together in an absurd tangle, none other than my cheap husband, Edwin, and his goddaughter, Maisie. When he called me, his voice strained with barely concealed agony, I replied in a soothing tone, "Even if they can't fix it, don't worry, once it dries. In a couple of days it'll peel off naturally. I'm a generous wife, after all. Since you two are so in love, why not stay inseparable forever?" A shuddering twitch came through the line, followed by a deafening roar, "Clara, you ing monster." I hung up with a frigid snap, a thrill of satisfaction coursing through me. For days, I ignored his calls. Word reached me that he and Maisie spent a week in the hospital, suffering through their sticky predicament. As I'd anticipated, he didn't dare report me for assault or make a public fuss, his precious reputation couldn't take the hit. But the next day, he fired back with a smug text, dripping with spite. "While you were off in Korea, I went straight to Maisie that first night in the Maldives. A young, tender body like hers? Nothing like your stiff, lifeless plank of a self in bed, Clara. Sorry, darling, hope you can handle it." My grip on the phone tightened until my knuckles blanched. Not happy? Too bad. Guess we'll just have to divorce. His words were breezy, as if he thought I'd shrug off his primal urges like some enlightened saint. Finally shedding his gentlemanly mask, he flaunted the crass, cowardly ugliness beneath, betting on my supposed magnanimity. Years ago, we'd discussed celebrity scandals, cheating husbands and their wives' tearful essays, and vowed that if we ever parted, we'd do so with dignity, no venomous slander. If love faded, we'd let go gracefully. But that promise hinged on fidelity, a line he'd crossed with gleeful abandon. Did he think I'd just roll over, a doormat for him to trample? His career was climbing, he couldn't afford a scandal. Even his dalliances with Maisie were shrouded in secrecy. Did he really believe I wouldn't fight back? I was having lunch with Julian when the nausea hit. We'd been hashing out the favor I'd asked of him when I clapped a hand to my mouth, gagging. He patted my back, concern etching his face. What's wrong? My strength faltered, I tried to stand but crumpled into his arms. He rushed me to the hospital, where an expedited blood test revealed the truth, HCG over 16,000. 7 weeks pregnant. Even Julian froze. Clara, you. My mind raced back. 2 or 3 months ago, Edwin and I had been trying for a baby. Negative tests had discouraged us, and I'd let it go. Of all times, child, why now? There's nothing surprising about it, I said weakly, forcing a smile. A married woman in her trying phase, it's normal. Julian's expression darkened. But are you going to tell that man? After what he's done? My fists clenched. Tell him? Oh, I'd do more than that. I'd make him know I was pregnant, claim what was mine, and bring him and his mistress crashing down, one by one. Maisie, spineless as ever, didn't even have the guts to confront me. She blocked me across all platforms, perhaps a flicker of guilt for the years I'd supported her. That same day, I texted Edwin. I'm pregnant. I want $5 million in compensation, then we can divorce. If you don't deliver by month's end, I'll escalate this, you can't afford the fallout. No hysterics, no tears, just cold, calculated terms. He held a semi-public position now, teetering on a promotion. One misstep could ruin him. Predictably, he panicked, begging forgiveness and refusing divorce. Darling, I messed up. I'm a filthy mutt who got tired of gourmet meals and went sniffing in the gutter, a mistake any man might make. Forgive me, please? I laughed. His contrition was as hollow as his soul. That's all you've got, Edwin? The PI confirmed he'd distanced himself from Maisie, but hadn't cut ties, still dreaming of having it all. I ignored his pleas, moving into a hotel under the guise of a Cold War, and pressed forward with my plan. Weeks earlier, I'd joined a socialite chat group, AAA Chic Ladies Club, under a fake account. The PI had dug up that Maisie, a faux heiress thriving off men, lurked there too. The group brimmed with local tycoons' wives flaunting their luxury hauls, Maisie's ticket to the elite life she craved. I crafted my alias with care, borrowing my wealthy friends' photos to paint a picture of opulence. After a few casual exchanges in the group, Maisie bit, adding me as a friend. My curated posts, my friends' selfies, and a bio claiming I was born in the 70s, hooked her. Sis, rose emoji, I can't believe you're a 70s baby. You're gorgeous, so well preserved, like you're in your 20s. Of course, I smirked. My friend was barely 30. Over a month, I reeled her in, gifting her designer bags, shipped via my Shanghai confidant, to cement my image as a spendthrift heiress. Soon, she opened up. Sis, I'm so jealous. You've got a rich husband, and I've got nothing. My love life's falling apart, ugh. I played the doting mentor, suggesting she pamper her boyfriend with soup and affection. She sighed, sending a dejected emoji. It's no use. His family's loaded, but I can't get it all, there's complications. I probed slyly, sweetie, does he have a wife? Her shock was instant. Wow, sis, how'd you guess? Sweat emoji, thumbs up. I grinned at the screen. Gotcha. I fed her twisted gospel, love doesn't care about timing, the unloved one's the real outsider. I tossed him poetic flair, he was born before me, and I came too late, until she marveled at my worldview. Then I confessed, to be honest, I was the other woman who climbed her way into a mansion. She was floored, begging for my secrets. How'd you ditch the old hag? I leaned in, all earnestness. The wife clung like a leech, refusing to let go gracefully. You've got to push him, make him prove his love with money. If he spends big, he's yours. Her awe was palpable, though she fretted, but his wife's pregnant. That's why he won't leave her, what do I do? I paused, then advised, keep draining him. The more he invests, the harder it is to walk away. And fake a pregnancy, force his hand. If he picks her, you've lost nothing and learned he's trash. She lapped it up, enthralled by my sales-honed rhetoric. I shut my phone, smirking at the dark screen. Your reckoning's coming, Edwin. Days later, Maisie crowed about her victory. Sis, your trick worked. Oh? I typed, eyebrow raised. She gushed. After he'd pulled away, she'd thrown a tantrum, tears, threats, the works, until he caved, showering her with luxury bags. That old guy's loaded. I'd been around his family for years and totally underestimated him. She sent me a $100 thank you transfer, smug as ever. The PI confirmed Edwin's accounts bled hefty sums. Still, I kept cool, this was just the start of his pain. Nice work, I replied via my alias. Now lay low a few days, then discover you're pregnant. Corner him. Meanwhile, I enlisted Julian. With his chiseled looks, he'd dabbled in ads and short films during college, scouted by talent agents, before settling into a steady media job. His brief brush with showbiz was my ace. Maisie had pined for him in school, his charm outshone Edwin's by miles. Knowing her entertainment dreams, I had Julian cozy up to her, dangling a career break he could broker. She leapt at it, starry-eyed, love and ambition blooming at once. She wouldn't let Edwin go either, determined to bleed him dry. When she revealed her fake pregnancy, Edwin broke our standoff, meeting me with fidgety hands. Divorce is fine, but $5 million? I can't do it. We'll split what we have. Think it over, abort the kid. It's best for us both. I sneered. He'd once begged for this child, now it was trash to him. Property-wise, he'd outmaneuver me, $5 million was safer. No deal, I said coolly. $5 million, or I ruin you. Caught between two pregnant women, he was unraveling. Julian, meanwhile, dazzled Maisie, coaxing her to fund her industry connections, money she squeezed from Edwin. Sis, you're a genius, my strategist. Rose emoji, happy emoji, she texted. He's losing it, I've got him bankrupting himself over my baby. I replied, switching numbers, best wishes, then deleted her. The net was tightening. I issued Edwin an ultimatum, $5 million by month start, or else. Maisie kept hounding him, pay up or she'd abort and leave. She'd milked him. Enough, a savvy gold digger knew when to bounce. The PI said Edwin was a wreck, sleepless and raging as his fortune and mistress slipped away. The deadline came, he couldn't pay. I didn't bluff, storming his company with accusations of infidelity during my pregnancy. His job teetered. No money? Borrow it, mortgage your house, your car. I'll back off, I snapped. Against a man like him, elegance wouldn't cut it, only raw, ruthless force would sting. But I never foresaw his desperate counterstrike. With my investment savings, I'd bought a suburban villa for a fresh start. That day, I headed to the garage for my BMW Mini. Climbing in, I felt off, stifled, uneasy, but chalked it up to pregnancy. Julian trailed behind, insisting on escorting me to the villa. On the bridge over the river, dizziness hit, my vision swam, tire swerving. Horns blared as Julian intercepted, yanking me from the driver's seat as I slumped, boneless. "Clara, stay with me, what's wrong?" Gasping on the bridge's edge, I recovered slowly. He donned a mask, checked my car with a gas meter we'd bought for my new home's renovations, and found lethal levels of carbon monoxide, odorless, invisible, a perfect murder weapon. If I'd crashed into the river, it'd look like an accident. 5 years of marriage, and Edwin wanted me, and our child, dead. Julian gathered evidence, draping his coat over me as I shivered in the wind. He pulled me close, my tears soaking his chest. Seeing me dazed, he sighed. "Clara, stop pushing so hard. I care more about you and the baby than his punishment." His warmth pierced me. He'd done all this, free of charge, while I'd only paid the PI. A rising star himself, he'd thrown himself into my vendetta. For a fleeting moment, I softened, but I turned away. At 30, I knew better than to entangle him in my mess. Julian vanished from Maisie's orbit, quitting his job. The connection fees she'd paid him, siphoned from Edwin, he refunded to me. She'd offered it willingly, no legal recourse. Her audition flopped too, a director scoffed, a 36D caricature for a serious film? No thanks. Her escort passed. Spread, tanking her modeling gigs. Edwin, learning her pregnancy was a lie, nearly broke. When I slapped the poisoning proof in his face, "You tried to kill me, you bastard," he groveled, borrowing from loan sharks to scrape up 5 million, agreeing to leave with nothing if I spared him jail. "Clara, please, one day as husband and wife means a lifetime of grace." "I don't want prison," he sobbed, clutching my legs. Spineless as ever, he feared bars more than shame. "Fine," I said, and the day the money hit my account, I called the cops with every shred of evidence. No mercy in war. Charged with attempted murder, he signed divorce papers in custody. I left that wretched city with my unborn child, my wealth and wits ensuring our future. Julian pursued me still. Undeterred, but I held back. Love wasn't my priority, not now, and not with a boy so young. Independence was my armor, I'd never cling like a vine or drown in romance's delusions. Someday, the unworthy pay. They always do. End.